The room went quiet the moment she walked in. Every pair of eyes followed her, some curious, some doubtful, and a few outright cold. Captain Rachel Hayes, 28, stood tall in her crisp uniform, the silver insignia on her chest catching the morning light like a silent challenge. She had been summoned to Fort Laramie Air Base for a debrief, but what waited for her inside that conference room wasn't just another mission, it was judgment. On the far end of the room, a colonel leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. The moment his gaze fell on her chest, a smirk formed on his face. "You didn't serve long enough to earn that," he said, his tone dripping with disbelief. What he didn't know, what no one in that room understood yet, was that the medal on her chest wasn't a symbol of time served. It was a symbol of sacrifice. Only 6 years earlier, Rachel Hayes had been a young medical officer stationed in Afghanistan, barely 22, fresh out of training, idealistic and full of quiet courage. She didn't come from a military family. She came from a small town where people still waved at their neighbors and worked honest jobs. Her father, a mechanic, always told her, "Courage isn't loud, Rachel. It's what you do when no one's watching." Those words became her compass, especially when everything went wrong. It was during her second year of deployment that the event happened, the one no one dared talk about in official reports, the one that would define her forever. Her convoy was ambushed in the middle of a dust storm on a route no one should have been traveling. Communications were jammed, air support delayed, and within minutes chaos swallowed the horizon. Rachel wasn't supposed to be leading that team. She was just the medic, the one who patched wounds, who gave morphine to men screaming in pain. But when her commanding officer was hit and the driver lost control of the lead Humvee, she took over. For 11 hours, Rachel led 14 soldiers through the dark, carrying the wounded, using flares and sheer instinct to navigate the desert terrain. With no reinforcements, she set up a defensive perimeter around the wrecked vehicles, treating injuries while returning fire, her hands shaking but her mind sharp. When the rescue finally arrived the next morning, 7 soldiers owed their lives to her. The 8th, her closest friend, didn't make it. He had been the one who taught her how to aim, how to breathe through panic, and in his final moments he whispered, "Finish what we started." She didn't cry that day. She didn't even sleep. She just wrote her report, signed the casualty forms, and moved on. Because that's what soldiers do. They move on even when part of them never does. When she returned home, the Army wanted to give her an award for valor. She refused at first, saying it wasn't hers alone, that every man she led that night deserved the same. But they insisted. That's how she earned the Silver Star, one of the highest honors for combat bravery. And yet, years later, standing in that conference room full of men who'd never read her file, who only saw a young woman with a medal, she was forced to defend it all over again. As the colonel's words echoed, she didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She simply walked to the end of the table, set down a folder marked Classified Operation Emberlight, and slid it toward him. "That should answer your question, sir," she said quietly. The colonel frowned, flipping it open. His expression changed instantly. Within seconds, his smirk faded. The air in the room turned heavy. Inside were mission logs, satellite images, commendations from generals, and a letter signed by the Secretary of Defense himself. The operation name was known to few, and those who did remember it called it one of the most impossible rescue missions ever carried out without backup. One by one, the officers in the room began to realize who they were looking at. Not just another young officer, but a woman whose actions had rewritten an entire chapter of modern combat medicine. She had broken protocol, yes, but in doing so, she had saved lives no one thought could be saved. The colonel stood up slowly. For the first time, his voice trembled. "You led that mission?" Rachel nodded once. He swallowed hard and said nothing more. No one did. After the briefing, as she stepped out into the sunlight, Rachel took a deep breath. The wind was soft, the sky wide and forgiving. She wasn't angry, not anymore. She was used to doubt, to whispers, to the sideways glances that followed her in every room she entered. But she had learned something through all of it. The truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to endure. That night, she visited a quiet memorial garden outside the base. A small plaque stood under a tree, engraved with the names of those who didn't make it back from Operation Emberlight. She traced her friend's name with her fingers, whispering softly, "We finished what we started." The next morning, a message arrived in her inbox from the Pentagon. It wasn't about another mission, and it was about recognition. The words were simple but powerful. Service record amended, lifetime achievement citation, exemplary leadership under fire. She stared at the screen for a long time, tears welling up in her eyes. Not because she needed acknowledgement, but because the truth had finally been seen. Her story began as one of doubt and dismissal, but it ended as a reminder of what real courage looks like. Not the loud kind, not the easy kind, the kind that fights for life in the dark. When no one's watching, when everyone's counting on you. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of History. Every story we tell honors those who carry unseen scars, silent strength, and the kind of courage that changes lives. Special request. Comment below. What does real heroism mean to you? Your words might inspire someone fighting their own unseen battle today.